oil prices are a hurdle for the Aramco IPO, but oil prices are actually up on Monday over fears that supplies from Iraq's Kirkuk province may be jeopardized. Iraq's army has moved into the province and seized control of oil fields and other infrastructure from the Kurdish Regional Government. The operation follows a recent independence referendum in the region. The country's central government called the vote illegal, and a number of other countries warned that it would lead to instability. Now, Mobin, talk to us about the oil prices today and the impact that the situation in Kirkuk is having on them.
If we could have the graph up for today's price, what we've seen is about 0.7% increase in prices as soon as the news came out of this move from the Iraqi army. And of course, the fear was that supplies from there would be hurt. Interestingly, one of the first statements that they've put out is said that they will maintain output. But although this seems like quite a move for one day, if we look at the bigger picture, if we look at the one-year graph, you can see prices have barely moved. So while this can cause some sort of short-term fluctuations, this is certainly not the kind of move in price that should speed up the Aramco IPO, for example.
Now, how messy could this get?
You're talking petropolitics here. Baghdad does not want to see Kirkuk and the Kurds having their own oil base. They need that money. There's production going on up there. Mobin today has been monitoring the markets on this. I've been talking to diplomats in the West on this, and what they're telling me is that there is a fear. If the Kurdish area becomes independent, it's going to turn, in their words, a kind of another Israel, but with oil in the region, has money, going to affect oil prices, and is going to just make the situation in the region worse. It's called petropolitics, and it's starting to percolate.
Now, of course, there are political reasons that we know that why neighbouring countries don't want to see an independent Kurdish regions, but talk to us a bit more in depth about the economic ones.
Well, of course, like Craig said, it comes down to the oil, and if you recall, one of the first warnings to the Kurdish Regional Government was the shutdown of the pipeline that takes all of that oil out of there for sale to the rest of the world. So, of course, right now, energy is central, especially in the economics of this region. I would be very surprised to see any room for new players in this energy market.
You're right. The moral of this story is go back to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has this thing called Saudi Vision 2030 that's supposed to redefine the country. It's supposed to create an economy, local based, that has nothing to do with oil. But every investment, every political, every geopolitical, and every economic move in the region is still based on the price of oil. And that is going to continue, even though vehicles are turning to electricity and other forms of green energy. It's still all about oil, and people desperately trying to get that price of oil up. And the market is saying it's not going to happen.
Now, just a quick quote from somebody you will probably remember very well, Tony Hayward, former BP boss. He had called the Iraqi Kurdish region one of the last great frontiers in the oil and gas industry. What would it take for this to happen? For it to really flourish?
Well, listen. Building pipelines and drilling wells in an area as rich as that is easy. Building pipelines and refineries is really not all that expensive. They know the oil is there. It's just bringing in the professionals to get it out. You're not looking at any big, expensive, long-term exploration in harsh climates.
And the emergence of these frontiers is all around us, which is why we are seeing the impact of OPEC also dwindling. And that is really the key here. If you look at the ability to maintain supply at a certain level, or to bring down prices or push up prices, all of that has been a very difficult task for the usual sort of leaders of the cartel. And part of that has to do with the fact that now there are a lot of new players who are not perhaps willing to play by OPEC rules.
Thank you so much for your insight, Mobin and Craig.